So this is part 2 of the video where I'm analyzing Benjamin Banneker's letter to Thomas Jefferson. You will want to go ahead and watch part 1 if you are watching this first. You will be confused. So a trick that I like to do while I'm reading through practice FRQ questions and planning, and something you might want to try the next time you're writing under a timed limit with the FRQ. As I'm going through, which I explained in part 1, and I'm annotating the document for different evidences and pieces that I might incorporate into my essay, I also like to write down some strategies that could support what I have so far. And the reason why I do this is as I'm finishing up this document, if I come across anything that I feel is really great evidence that can continue to support a strategy that I already have in mind, then I'm going to go ahead and make the decision to run with that strategy in a body paragraph. The same thing holds true for the opposite. If I write down a strategy that I'm kind of thinking about might work well with this essay, but then as I continue reading, I realize that there's not enough evidence to support that idea, then I'm going to cross that strategy out entirely and I'm not going to use it in my writing because I'm not going to have enough support to prove that that's what I think Benjamin Banneker is doing. So remember, when we're talking about rhetorical strategies, we're talking about what the writer is doing. So this is part of that says, does, because, okay? It's what the author is doing. It's the does part. Rhetorical strategies is the does part. And then in your body paragraph, you'll explain the because part, why it's important, okay? So I wrote down a couple of strategies here that I think would be a good approach here. But again, you please don't steal these. Like I'm trying to walk you guys through this to show you how to approach and how to plan for these types of things. But I also don't want to enable you, and I want you to really start looking for things on your own here. So one of the things I might notice is that, as I mentioned in part 1 of this video, Banneker alludes to the American Revolutionary War in order to appeal to Thomas Jefferson's background, framer of the Declaration of Independence. As you know, or maybe you don't know, the Declaration of Independence, I believe, was officially published in like 77, maybe, something like that. I know it was in the 1770s somethings. Okay, so I was trying to remember what I could from Hamilton, from when I saw Hamilton, but I couldn't remember. So I looked it up on the internet, and the Declaration of Independence was published in 1776. So 1776. Anyway, so just to remind you, the Declaration of Independence was written to argue against freedom, or argue for freedom from British rule, and it was after the American Revolutionary War. Thomas Jefferson did not serve in the war. He was a politician at the time, but was still alive and working in politics while this war was happening. Something else Banneker is doing is he's incorporating a quote from the Declaration of Independence, which argues for the equality of all men endowed by their Creator. So I might talk about the fact that he is quoting the Declaration of Independence here. I'm going to keep reading and see if that really works out in the end, but he is incorporating quotes. My third strategy that I've come up with so far is that Banneker is he references Christianity throughout his argument to appeal to Thomas Jefferson's values and to support his argument that all men are created equal under God's power. So far in this text, we've seen the idea of a God or a heaven. We've seen it twice. So in the first paragraph and then in the second paragraph. And if you don't know this about Thomas Jefferson, or if you haven't figured it out from his quote from the Declaration of Independence, but Thomas Jefferson took his beliefs very, very seriously and was a devout Christian and a man of the Enlightenment. And, so knowing those things about your audience is very clever as a writer because you're going to appeal to their values here, okay? So let's keep reading. There's two more paragraphs here. I want to see if I can find anything to support some of these strategies, or if there is a different strategy that I can come up with for my potential essay here. Different things I've noticed that Benjamin Banneker is doing in this third paragraph here. Again, he is referencing a God in Christianity. He does it a couple of times here when he references the liberty and free possession as blessings that we're entitled to by nature. He then again says, oh, and how you believe in this benevolence of capitalization Father. That's a good way of knowing God, capitalization for Father to reference God. So this benevolence of the Father of mankind and of his equal and impartial distribution of those rights and privileges. So again, we are provided, is what he's saying, equality because of nature, because of God, because it is our rights. In this part, he is using logic against Thomas Jefferson again. So what he's arguing in this last paragraph is that I understand you believe in a higher power, you believe in God Almighty. He's given us these rights as humans, as creator of my life, but at the same time, you are forcing my brethren under groaning captivity and cruel oppression, that you should be at the same time found guilty of that most criminal act which you professedly detested in others with respect to yourselves. So what he's arguing there is that you are holding my brothers under captivity, you are putting my people into cruel oppression, but you just helped your people declare freedom from the British. So it doesn't really make a lot of sense. You're saying that you do support God Almighty and you do support this idea that all men are created equal, as you wrote in your declaration, but at the same time, you're putting my people under oppression here. So you could incorporate some logic here. And one of the reasons I think why he's using so much logic, not only to support an argument, but Thomas Jefferson is also a lawyer. So knowing that about your audience, knowing that your audience is in fact also a lawyer, you can assume that he's going to value logic in an argument itself. So this might be something that you could use as a strategy, the incorporation of logic here for a lawyer. Again, I'm going to continue to try to find things that maybe other students wouldn't write about, but so far I have the three here that I've listed, on top of using logic for a lawyer, on top of using the formality of sir throughout the piece to show a sign of respect, on top of using that formal and high class diction. So there's a lot of different opportunities that you have. So again, one of the strategies that you might talk about is the respectful tone that he's using here. And in this last paragraph, it might start to sound like he's getting a little bit disrespectful in the fact that he is saying, you are putting my people under captivity, even though you just fought for your people to be free from captivity. But he quickly recovers from any potential disrespect in the first sentence of the next paragraph, in which he starts it off with sir. And he says, I suppose that your knowledge of the situation of my brethren is too extensive to need a recital here. So he is showing Thomas Jefferson respect by showing that he knows he's a smart man and that he is aware of the situation and that he doesn't need a lecture from Banneker here to talk him through what is going on in their history. So he does recover from a potential any type of disrespect he may have shown in that third. He finishes off that last paragraph with a biblical allusion. Okay, so he is showing a biblical allusion to Job. And if you are familiar with the Bible and you do know about the story about Job, you know that he is a man that is put under much suffering at the hand of God. And throughout all of it, Job continues to stay loyal to to his God. So there is another piece there, is a biblical allusion that you could also use. So a lot to go through here, a lot of different strategies that he is in fact using. So you can pick what you want to do, but this is kind of what I would do if I were reading this for the first time and taking notes on it in preparation for the exam. Now, I know that between the two videos, this is about a 30-minute discussion about how I would analyze this, and I think it's just simply because I'm explaining my thoughts out loud. This is something you should want to practice so that you are not spending more than 5 to 10 minutes kind of planning out what you want. That way you can spend 30 minutes really focused on writing this out, and using those formulas and those notes to help you come up with an essay here. So if you have any questions or need anything, you can join our Zoom meeting today, or you can send me a remind and we can plan an individual meeting. But here are my notes on analyzing Benjamin Banneker's text to Thomas Jefferson.